Pat Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Whose market is it? That's why we wanted to chat with Craig Barton-Hill today, realtor and owner of Ottawa House and Condo Group with Century 21 Synergy. How are you, Craig?
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me on. I'm great.
It's a pleasure to spend time with you today. The housing market, I think, the first thing we ask everybody, how's the weather? And the second thing is, how's the housing market? It's really on the top of everyone's mind. What would you say to the question? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market?
So I have a really different perspective than most agents have these days, and it's because of the numbers. So if you take a look, and I've got a few numbers to run through if you'll allow me, Sam. If you look back to 2018, there were 17,000 plus houses sold that year, condos and freeholds. And if you fast forward to 2021, we sold 20,302 properties. So you can see the increased number of houses that were sold. Mm-hmm. So that would indicate that there had to be a large number of properties on the market. The big problem right now is everybody's saying, hey, there's no properties on the market. We're in a huge seller's market, and we can't keep up with the demand. There's so many buyers out there. So there's buyers coming in from everywhere, right? There's buyers coming from Toronto, Vancouver. Investors are seeing the trends. But what they're seeing is the increased values of properties, and they don't see that stopping anytime soon in Ottawa. So because I can see that we have so many properties sold, we know that there had to be more properties for sale. It's just that they're selling that much quicker. The demand is really high. So I would say when you're looking at the market, is it a seller's market? In the sense that we take a look back and go with the traditional route or the traditional way, yes, we are in a seller's market. Mm-hmm. But houses have gone up 24% in the last, each of the last 2 years pretty much, and 16% for condos. So everybody that bought a house 2 years ago or 3 years ago and overpaid for it, and I'm doing air quotes right now, everybody but overpaid for a house is very happy they did, because the value that increased their house has really increased their net worth. Mm-hmm. We're kind of sitting in a seller's market plus a buyer's market, because they're going to make a lot of money on anything they purchase.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because, to your point, when the pandemic hit, I actually had a couple of friends that were in the middle of trying to sell their houses. And of course, when the pandemic hit, remember how complicated it was, Craig. People couldn't come in your house. And, that's when we started to see a lot more virtual. And they were so petrified that they weren't going to sell. Well, both of them did really, really well on their house, because, we didn't know what the inventory was going to be. And then fast forward, a year later, you see that the growth is still there. What's it like for a first-time buyer? That's always been my concern. Someone trying to put that first house and walk in those doors for the very first time.
So it is all about affordability, right? So, and when we look at affordability, the first thing we do is we look at price. We kind of have to look, really hard to do. We kind of have to look beyond price right now, because price is just one number. What you really need to do is look at the affordability month over month. So right now, the hard part is getting that down payment. And I would say to anybody buying their first house, find any way you can. Talk to your mortgage agent, your real estate agent, your family to accumulate enough for that down payment. Because if mortgage rates go up, which they're probably going to do, for every percent they go up, it's a $10,000 deduction on what you can afford. So if you're pre-approved right now for $500,000 and mortgage rates go up by 1%, well, now your buying power is only $490,000. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be able to get less house for every percentage point that the mortgage rates go up. So we still see the trends happening in Ottawa, and we're going to have huge increases. Is it going to be 24% again in 2022? I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be close. So I would say buy when you can, find a way to get that down payment. It's a tough thing to do.
Are you finding, Craig, at this time, people that maybe did buy a couple of years ago, maybe it's a new build, the house that they're in, they're trying to hold on to it, to rent it, because prices are continuing to rise?
Well, yeah. So we have a lot of investor clients, right? And there's a lot of investors that have come in from Toronto or that live right here in the National Capital Region that have bought brand new houses. And it's funny because they bought houses 2 years ago, and they're ready now. They take a while to be built, of course. So they've made a huge increase over those two years. So actually what I'm seeing is People are selling them off with a profit, and others are, yes, keeping them for more increased value over time. Because we never really see a decrease in Ottawa. That hasn't happened since the 80s. We don't necessarily see 24% every year, but let me give you an example. We've been seeing that over the last 2 years, and then January of this year, we had 936 sales versus 708 sales in January of 2018. So it's still increasing year over year.
I don't know about you, Craig, but certainly during this pandemic, I find communities like Richmond and Arnprior and, Almont, all of a sudden those communities, people think, well, they're not that far, actually. And they're looking at those communities, especially Carleton Place, too. We know there's been a big boom there. And they're starting to sort of move out into those communities. Are you seeing that?
Carleton Place is on fire. And you know what? All the outskirts are really starting to get a lot more sales, and the values of the homes are going up and up and up. And we're seeing that specifically because of the pandemic. And it's because people are realizing now, hey, we can always work from home. We don't have to commute as often. So why don't we live a little further out, have a little bit more privacy maybe, a little bit more land, and for the dollar, right? So we do see an increase in sales out in those areas.
And when you're thinking about new builds, I think what surprises me is I was looking at a new build the other day, and the townhouses were sort of starting at about $764. I just about fell off my chair. But the houses, that are a bit more established, even, 5-10 years old, are sort of at $700, but they have the fence and the air conditioner and all of those things that, are that added cost when you get a brand new house. So how does that sort of play out? What are you seeing there, Craig?
Yeah, you know what? People love to buy new builds because it's brand new, it's sparkly, it looks really great, and I understand that. The difference is that if you buy a house that's a couple years old, that's maybe even a little less expensive, as you just said, but it has the fence, it has the driveway finish, the eaves troughs are on, you're probably getting more value for your dollar, and you know what? You're not buying any unseen troubles or unseen problems with the house because you don't know if there's going to be any issues with the foundation. You don't know if there's any issues with the roof because no one's lived there yet.
It's such a good point, absolutely. And, when you speak to other realtors in our region, is there a pocket that is, maybe a bit of a treasure that people haven't sort of pursued in that area and it's becoming a little bit hotter?
Well, Carleton Place is very hot, like you had mentioned earlier. But, the whole city of Ottawa, all the outskirts, everywhere is just booming because people realize Ottawa's still a great place to buy. There's still great growth coming. I would not say that there is one particular spot in the city or just outside the city limits that is hotter than the other because everything here is really, really flying.
Really appreciate your time today, Craig. Such an important conversation to have. The housing market's always top of mind for me. I'm always fascinated to see what's happening in the city. Thanks for your advice today.
Sam, thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Craig Barton-Hill, realtor and owner of Ottawa House and Condo Group with Century 21 Synergy. Appreciate his time.